All right, well, we may as well get started because we don't want to hold anybody up who has joined us today for this training session. So thanks everybody who is participating. Once again, we do plan on recording this, so assuming all goes well, we will be able to send this out for you to watch again or share with other people on your team. Today we will be having a presentation from Michael Benedict, who will be talking about different pricing scenarios in Blue Link. So if you have any questions, feel free to just message them in the chat, and then the plan is to get through them either during the presentation or at the very end. So without further ado, I will let Michael get started.
Good afternoon, everyone. Hope you're staying safe and having a good day so far. What we're going to do is what we're going to talk about today is, like Sam said, is pricing scenarios. And there, are a few things that we're going to talk about. Basically, there's a number of different prices and methods in Blue Link that can be set up and used. We're going to actually show you how to set up some of those different methods in the system. We're going to show you how they get, how they impact the price on the sales order. And just so that you guys know, I'm still adding people to the chat as we go through. But anyway, and then we're going to have some questions at the end. Samantha is going to keep track of my time. As some of you may know, I get long-winded sometime, but she's going to keep track of my time so that we have enough time to answer questions at the end. So let's talk. So let's, before we go any further, I'm going to actually switch my screen to Blue Link. Hopefully everybody can see Blue Link. Sam, if you can't, just let me know. And then what we're going to do is, we're going to start off and basically just talking about some of the different prices that can be set up in the system. So I'm in the inventory maintenance screen. Most of the pricing can be actually set up in here.
So Michael, we're just seeing the agenda right now.
Oh, it didn't switch.
No.
Okay, just 1 second. That's why I asked you.
There, that's better.
Okay, so again, sorry. So we're in Blue Link's inventory screen right now. This is where most of the pricing can be set up, or at least associated to. So let's talk about a couple of them that we're going to go through. So of course, we should all know about the UOM pricing. This is one of those products or prices that have to be set up in the system. We have something called price matrix. We're going to talk about that in a little bit further. Discount quantities, again, details there. There's pricing contracts, and these are all specifically set up in Blue Link from the inventory side of things. There's also a couple other places that you can use or maintain or manage pricing. Of course, we can all change, a discount on a sales order, or we can actually change the discount of a line of the sales order. And if you are one of those industries that allows negotiation of prices, I can always change the price right on the sales order in itself. Be aware that when you're in a sales order, the system is keeping track of those prices. So when I go to, and it's keeping track in what we would call our change log or view change log. So not everybody's going to have access to this. It's going to depend on what permissions you have in the system, what security setup you might have in the system. But you can see here, earlier today I was playing with changing of discounts on a specific sales order or deleting a line. That kind of information is going to be tracked in the system, along with who actually changed it and when in the system, just so that you're aware, that is actually in the system. So let's actually talk about some of the specifics of the pricing in the system. So the first thing you'll see here is we call it discount pricing or UOM pricing. There is multiple prices that you can actually, or multiple currencies that you can see here. I have a US and Canadian set up. You can also see here that I have another US currency set up. And the effective date is August 1st. The system allows me to set up a specific price in the future. And then when that specific day shows up, so for instance, as of today, the price is going to be $10.22 for this particular product. but after or on or after the August 1st, it's going to actually go to 1276. This allows you the ability to enter in updated prices now for the future. So you don't have to worry about doing it over that weekend like older systems used to have to do. Okay? These prices are used in a number of different places when we're calculating discounts or the matrix price or the price breaks. So as we're going through these different pricing scenarios, with the exception of contract pricing, which we're going to also talk about, it's going to actually use these UOM prices in the system. Now, I say UOM prices because if there's multiple UOMs, there's different prices set up for each one of them in the system. The next thing that I want to talk about is matrix or the price matrix in the system. Many times many times customers are talking to me, prospects are talking to me about saying, look, we have a number of pricing discount levels that are set up in the system, and we actually associate different customers or different groups of customers to different discount levels. This is exactly what price matrix will allow you to do. So if I go into the drop down here, what you can do in price matrix is you can set up as many different price matrix, for instance, description or groups of products that you want to set up in the system. You can then associate the various discounts for 9 different levels in the system. And then when you associate this particular product to a level, so for instance, I can actually say here level or product 3 as an example, it's now going to use discount level 3, or discount grouping 3 for this particular product. In the customer information, so if I go to customer now, for this particular product, it's associated under the matrix level. So now this particular customer, Black Eyed US, is getting price level 2, or price level 3, I should say, for all products that are associated to any one of the different matrices. So he would actually be getting level 3 discount. I'm just going to close some of this stuff. So that's the pricing matrix. The discounting that comes off of here is associated to the UOM pricing. Okay, so for instance, if it was a 2% discount or a 5% discount, it's actually coming off these specific prices here. Discount quantities are associated, they do not have anything to do with the specific customer. They are set up in the system. So if you have quantity breaks for specific customers, you can see here that I have, a quantity break of 5 or quantity break of 10. Again, these are UOM or unit specific discounts. I can actually have, different UOMs with different quantity breaks for eaches versus cases in the system. It also can be associated differently for different currencies that you have set up in the system. And at the same time, you can see here that there's 3 different pricing discount structures that can be set up in the system. So if I look at the percentage, what it's going to do is it's going to literally just take 2% off. If I actually order 5, it's going to take 2% off the price, the UOM price. If I used a fixed discount, it's going to actually, in this situation, take $2 off the fixed discount. So if you want it to be, 50 cents, it would be 0.5 as an example, 0.50 in the system. And the last one here, to be very specific, is this is actually telling the system what you want the price to be. So it will not even use the UOM price anymore. So for instance, if I actually say specific price $2, when someone buys, when someone buys, 5 of this particular product, they're going to get it for $2. Okay, so it's very specific. You have to be looking at that. So let's look at and see how this would actually work in a price analysis. So I'm going to actually just pick a customer. And if I say a case of 1 and I do calculate prices, it's going to actually give me the price. Okay, So what happened here is that I did not go into the system and I did not update this. If I go in and do a refresh on the inventory and I do a recalculate, it's actually going to give me the price matrix of this particular price now, 1022, plus the 3% discount for the price matrix. And this is where, and then this would be the effective price of $9.91 that this particular customer would get the product for, okay? If I then go one step further and say, let's just actually use the specific pricing for a second, and I say 5 here, what's going to happen now is the system is going to analyze, and I'm just going to try to move this out of the way. The system's going to analyze what's the best price, either this price or the price of 2. And we should all sort of know what that scenario is. Okay, now, one thing that you should be aware of, and you can actually see here, it actually took the $2 price from here, and the system by default, and this is one of those things that you have to be very careful about, the system by default also took the discount level or the matrix level of 3%. So even though it's 2% here or $2 here for the discount level, it's also taking the 3% off of the product matrix, and therefore your end price would be $1.94. So in the system, be very careful and play with your, your playgrounds that you have to make sure that you know what the specific price is and the way you're going to be setting up. Most customers, from my understanding, from what we've talked about, don't use a number of different pricing setups. They actually use one or the other or a combination, but they know what the situation is. So you can actually see that in the system. Of course, if I took this to and I actually went to a fixed discount or a percentage, it would actually have adjusted this accordingly. If there's any questions, again, you can ask Samantha. If she thinks it's really important, she can ask me, but for the most part, we're probably going to answer them at the end.
Yep, so far so good.
I'm still getting people chiming in, so I'm actually just trying to make sure that I'm staying on top of that. So let's talk about contract pricing in itself. So I'm going to actually go back to another product here because I had that set up in the system. So it's a little bit easier for us to actually see information. And you'll see here that contract prices can be both by setting up different quantity breaks. So in this particular case, if you start using contract prices, you might not want to use the specific discount. You can, but then it gets a little bit more complicated. You have to be careful on what's happening because the discount or the quantity breaks is going to be even added to the contract pricing. The easier way to do this is to actually set up, for instance, I have a number of different contracts here. You'll see a list for the case. This is the normal price. And now the system is going to use the normal price here of $23.50 for a customer that's set up on a list. So if I go back to that customer again, in the system, just so you can see where that information might come from. It's actually being set up in here now. So for this particular customer, it's under contracts. You can see here that this customer is associated to an A list, to D1, and to promotions, okay? A couple things while we're in here that you should be aware of is there are 2 radio buttons. One of them that says best price, and one of them that says first price matched found, okay? You can also see here is, does the price matrix get included or does it apply? These are all important fields or buttons because if you have them set in different ways, the system will behave differently. Best price indicates that it will go through each one of these prices. It will go through any of the discounting prices in the system, and it will determine what the best price is and return that. If you ask the system to do first match found, if the product is in here, it will actually return that product first. or that price first. No matter if D1 is a better price or promotions is a better price, or even the pricing matrix is a better price, it will still look at the contract code or the first one in the system as priority the best. Okay, so let's actually talk about some of these other things that you see. So again, I can actually set up different quantity breaks. So if the customer is getting a quantity break of 10, you can actually see here that it would be a 3% discount. Okay, now this is a 3% discount off of this. Okay, it's not a 3% discount off of this. Okay, you can see here that I had, when I was in the customer, that there could be different contract pricing. So as an example, the customer is always my best customer, but I put promotions on sometimes, and therefore I'm going to also allow him to have promotions. You can see that there's expiration dates you may or may not be aware of that can actually be set up in the system. And by default, the system will say, is this particular contract price applicable or not? But actually, so let's look and see in an analysis again, looking at that other customer. I'm just going to use Black Eye 2 here for a specific case of one of these eaches to see what it's showing me. Well, first of all, the system is saying that the promotions is the best price, okay, $23. Okay, it's showing me that there is a contract A list of $23.50, but there's also a discount of 2% because of this price matrix here. So again, be very careful when we're talking about that kind of, or using that kind of thing. You can also see here that there's a contract D pricing that's set up in the system. And at the end of the day, Blue Link is using the best price. Okay, let's go and use 10 as the quantity that they're going to buy to see how it changes. What you'll see now is that Blue Link still believes or has returned that the best price is for the promotions of 10 cases. But you can see here that there's other information in here also with regards to the discounting that is now set up in the system. So again, be very careful on how you want to set it up, and make sure that you're actually looking at the returns, and make sure that it's going to actually be set up to what you want it to be set up. The last function that we're going to spend a little bit more time on is a discounting group or price group that is not used very often, and sometimes I think that it should be used more often. But what this is called is a price group or contract group discounting. So what I'm going to do is go into the contracts. If you don't know already, you can actually go into contract pricing. And this is where for contracts in themselves, you can either enter in all the different products that are in the system, or you can be entering in those products from the contract pricing on the specific products themselves. At the end of the day, it's all the same table in Blue Link, so it's going to return the same information. If I change something in the contract pricing panel, it's going to adjust the inventory. Still getting people coming in. It's going to adjust the inventory side of things, and vice versa. Okay. From here, you can see that I can apply or tell the system what customer do I want to be associated to my A-list pricing. Okay. One of the things that we're just talking about is a new, a pricing group that is not used very often, and that can be set up in or assigned in the pricing group discounts. To actually use the pricing group discounting, I have to go to system parameters and tell the system which different pricing groups that I want. So if you go into system parameters, if you have the ability to do that, go into search for group, It's under inventory price groups, and you'll see I actually have a lot of those price groups. So what does this do? It gives you the ability to group products, not categories in Blue Link, but group products together that you might want to associate a specific discount or a markup, in this case, for the specific products. So for instance, if you are in the industry of selling nuts and bolts, just to make life simple, you know, nuts and bolts, doesn't matter which kind they are, you know, a specific size, you might be able to get a great percentage of, you know, a great profit, and you're going to give a markup of only 3%. Therefore, you can actually put all of your nuts and bolts together and say, I want a group, a price group of nuts and bolts in the system here, and then you can assign that particular price group to your inventory, and I'll show you that in a second. So what happens is, if I go into back into my inventory for a second, on the second page here, there is something called price group. And I'm just going to go back to this other one. There's something called price group. This is where the system allows me to say, for this particular product, or for all the products that I want to manage the specific pricing, discounts, or markups all the same, I can associate it to, in this case, a group. Okay? So how do we go about getting those particular discounts set up? If you go into, and I'm just going to refresh this. By the way, if anybody doesn't know, Shift F9, when you're in a panel such as that, will actually update your screen for you. Anyway, back into pricing groups, under discount pricing, you'll see a tab here called price group discounts. If I go in here, I'm now in the A list, okay? A list is still for that contract, but I can associate the price group of A list or A1 PG, A list or A2 PG, and I can tell the system which discounts or markups that I want in the system. Now the system behaves as a discount. So as an example, you can see here that a discount of 5% would be a discount of 5%. But if I tell the system a negative 1.5 or a negative 2, it's actually reversing it. So it's going to add 2% to, you know, the price or the UOM price of A2 group. Okay, so that's exactly what it's going to do. Now you can actually do this for each one of your contract prices. So if you have best group or best customers, you know, in A list, they could actually get a better pricing group. The same still price group A1, but their discount could be different depending on how you want them to set it up in the system. Okay, and before we get out of here, we can then manage and change the prices or the discounts of those by going into what we call contract group discount maintenance at the bottom here. So if I go in here, you can see I'm in A list, but this gives me the ability to go into the system and say for contracts A list, as an example, I'm not going to do all of them, but for contracts A list, or whatever you want, they could be all of them, okay? For group discount, which is this, I can tell the system that I want to mark it up 0.5% or 0.5%. Okay, so what it's going to actually do now, this particular field right here is going to go up 0.5%, or in fact, in this case, it would actually go to 1 because we're actually adding a percent. I just have to hit update. And now it actually changed to 1%. The same thing can happen if I decide to do a negative. Now, in a negative, it's the opposite, which is a markup then. So I can actually say I want it to be marked up 2% in this particular situation, and it's going to do the same thing. Now you'll see here that I can actually select the specific products. Too much detail for this discussion, but you can actually go in there and select the specific products in your pricing group. But in this particular situation, I can say markup, and now it's going to actually mark it up to 3% in this situation. Really powerful once you actually figure out and learn the impact of it, and I'm going to show you the impact here in a second in a price analysis in the product. But once you learn the impact of these specific pricing, the price changes in here, it's a lot easier to actually set up your products by grouping, and then you can associate it. Many times customers will talk to me about saying, I do a product, I do a markup of a group of products. Well, this is exactly how you can do it. You can associate a price group to that group of products and then do a markup accordingly to what you want to be able to do. So I'm going to go back into the inventory in itself. Okay, for this particular, for this particular product again, I actually have associated this to a A1 group, okay, in this particular situation, or any of the other ones I want, okay. If I go into pricing, you can actually still see all this information, but let's now look and see the impact of price analysis. So if I do a price analysis for that same customer that I was playing with earlier, for one case, what you'll see now is a number of other products or a number of other scenarios or analysis. So you can actually see here now that it's actually taking, that 2%, in this case, discount of this particular product, or in this particular case, for the contract D, it's actually using now the price group discount also. Hey guys, I don't have any other information to sort of share today. I wanted it to be sort of, quick and dirty. We're sort of half hour into it now. Is there any other questions? Is there any questions that you guys have about anything that we talked about or anything in the pricing scenarios themselves that you would want to ask questions about?
So far, no questions in the chat, but if anybody does have questions after the fact or, just has any other comments about this functionality, I'm going to put my email in the group so that, later on people could always email me and I could kind of point them in the right direction too.
So when I'm doing a demo and someone, and there's no questions such as this, I tell the prospect that I'm talking about, I'm either doing a really good job or I'm doing a really bad job. Hopefully it's a really good job. And if you have any questions, by all means, I'll be more than happy to answer them.
So there is a question that just came in, Michael. So the question is, if a customer has contract pricing, will that always be the price?
Yes, it will not change until you make the change, correct? Or until the effective date is passed. So in this particular situation, in a contract price as an example, if, for instance, this is a promotion and I've actually associated a customer to allow them to actually get promotion pricing for specific products, but this is going to expire on the 31st. So as an example, or as a result, on the 31st or on the 1st of August, this promotions would no longer be valid, and therefore the system would, the analysis would be looking at other contracts or specific pricing for that particular.
Awesome. Well, thanks very much, Michael. Once again, if anybody has questions after the price or after the fact, you can always shoot me an email or just reach out as you normally would. And I do plan on putting this training session on our website, so I will be able to send out an email with that information to everybody that joined. But thank you very much.
Thanks, everybody. Have a great day.